You made it. Get comfortable, turn the lights down, and just breathe. I'm going to whisper you through something dark tonight. A story that'll keep you company while the rest of the world sleeps. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you've been here before, you already know what's coming. Settle in, and if you haven't already, subscribe so YouTube keeps sending you nights like this one. Now, let's begin. My husband Danny and I had been camping together since our second date. 6 years of weekends in the woods, different forests, different seasons. We were good at it, and we loved it, and it was ours. That version of ourselves that only existed outdoors, easier and quieter than the city versions of us. The Marin Forest was Danny's suggestion. 4 hours north, dense old growth, a site he'd read about on a hiking forum. Good trail access, a river nearby, far enough from other sites that we'd have the quiet we both needed. We drove up on a Friday and had the tent up by 4 p.m. and the fire going by 6, and by nightfall, we were exactly where we wanted to be. Danny made food on the camp stove, and I sat with my back against a log and looked up at the sky through the trees and thought that nothing in the city ever felt like this. We went to sleep around 11. The forest was making its normal sounds. Insects, wind, the distant sound of the river. I fell asleep quickly and slept well. At some point in the deep middle of the night, the screaming started. It came from deep in the forest, far off, far enough that my first thought in the second between sleep and waking was animal. Foxes scream. People who haven't heard a fox at night don't know how human it sounds. I lay still and waited for it to resolve itself into something I could categorize. It screamed again. Not a fox, not anything I'd heard before. The sound had a quality that didn't belong to an animal, something in the register of it, something in the way it sustained that went beyond what a throat should be able to do. Long and high and full of something that I can only describe as intention, like it was aimed. Danny was awake beside me. I could tell without touching him. It came a third time, closer. Not slightly closer, noticeably closer. The kind of distance that should have taken something several minutes to cover and had been covered in the seconds between one scream and the next. Danny unzipped his sleeping bag, and I grabbed his arm. He told me he was just going to look outside the tent. I told him not to open the tent. He said my name the way he did when he wanted me to be reasonable, and I held his arm and told him, "Do not open the tent." The screaming came again, closer still, and closer, closing the distance in those impossible jumps that had nothing to do with how things actually moved through a forest. And we lay in that tent and did not speak, and held each other's arms and listened to it come. It was at the edge of our sight when it stopped. Just stopped. Between one scream and the silence that followed, it stopped. And then something walked around our tent. I've tried to describe those footsteps to people, and the closest I've gotten is this. They were the right size for something very large, and they were patient. And they went around the tent once completely, and then stopped at the entrance. The tent zipper moved. Not opening, just moved, nudged, like something testing whether it was fastened. Danny had his hand on the inside of the zipper, and I had both hands over my mouth, and we looked at each other in the dark of the tent and didn't breathe. The zipper stopped moving. Then it screamed again, so close that the sound went through me physically. Not outside the tent. The sound was everywhere, inside and outside at once, and it lasted longer than the others, and when it stopped, my ears were ringing. Then nothing. We lay there for an hour. Nothing. The forest went back to its normal sounds slowly, cautiously, like the insects and the wind were checking whether it was safe. At 3 a.m., Danny said we were leaving. Not in the morning. Now. I agreed before he finished the sentence. We broke camp in the dark in 20 minutes, moving fast and not talking. Loaded the car and got in, and drove the forest road with the headlights cutting through the dark between the trees. About 2 kilometers from the campsite, Danny said my name. I looked up from the dashboard. In the mirrors, both of them, the side mirrors and the rear, things were running behind the car. I won't tell you exactly what they looked like, because I'm not sure my eyes gave me accurate information in the dark, at speed with fear doing what fear does to perception. What I'll tell you is that there were several of them, that they were tall and moved wrong, and that they were keeping pace with the car at a speed that shouldn't have been possible. Danny pushed the accelerator to the floor. The road straightened out, and we hit 120 kilometers per hour on a forest road in the dark. And I watched the mirrors and watched them fall back and fall back. And then the trees thinned, and we hit the junction with the main road, and they were gone. We drove 4 hours home without stopping, got back to our apartment at 7 a.m., sat in the car in the parking garage for a while before we went in. Danny sold the camping equipment the following month. Neither of us suggested keeping it.